Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1500. Yes, episode 1500 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday, and I'll be joined momentarily by my friend Tyler Jones, fan favorite, friend of the podcast. Always a great guest to have on any time of year, especially when it's certainly a lot going on in the NBA world right now, and the NBA draft is only a couple days away. Also, at the top of the podcast, I should tell you to subscribe to the show and make us your first listen each and every day. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Also, follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me on Twitter at BT Rowland. Follow my Patreon work, patreon.com/BT Rowland. You know, it is draft week. There is a lot going on. Nothing has risen to the level of a 5-alarm fire just yet as I record this podcast. There are some rumors that we'll touch on a little bit with Tyler, and I've aggregated a lot more to touch on in our final episode before the draft or if anything else happens in the next couple of days. But first, though, a lot of stuff already in the archive that is definitely still relevant to listen to. In recent days, I've talked to Glenn Willis numerous times about the entire state of the Hawks roster, including a 2-part episode on Monday about DeJounte Murray. I talked to Ben Pfeiffer about the NBA draft, Richard Stayman about the NBA draft, Zach Milner, Mark Schindler, Brian Schroeder, all the way up and down the roster when it comes to fantastic guests talking about the draft. So catch them on that stuff right now in the archive. And please share the show with a friend in your life that happens to be a Hawks fan. If they don't know us already, it's a great time to go and jump on board. All right, so with all that out of the way, we'll have the intro. I'll be back with myself and Tyler Jones talking about the state of the Hawks as well as the NBA draft that arrives just a couple of days on Thursday.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm joined once again by friend of the podcast, fan favorite, general connoisseur of the basketball space. Tyler Jones is back. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, Brad, I got a question to start us off.
Always.
So are the Braves getting 7 All-Stars or 9 or 10? How many?
Without looking at it, I think, 8 or 9, probably.
Yeah, 8? Because I think it's 5 position players and maybe
I always
6.
believe in Orlando Arcia. I always believe. I didn't.
Arcia has made us all look like dummies. I was like,
I did not believe at all.
I thought they were doing the the manipulation thing, and then it's like, no, Arcia is just the best shortstop in baseball.
Apparently he is. We're off to a rousing start as always on this podcast.
We don't. I'm sorry, Brad, but are the Braves cheating? Like, what's going on, man?
They're winning a lot of games
in the basketball. I mean, but they did crushing baseballs. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, of course we could. I'll do more of this on my actual Brave show, but I mean, part of it is they play the Rockies, and the Rockies are the worst pitching staff in the league, so that's probably part of it. But yeah, they're really good. The Braves are good when they're good, man. When everybody's dialed in, it's pretty scary. They don't have a lot of weaknesses. So, I guess the ostensible purpose of this podcast is to sort of do a pre-draft check-in. The draft is this week. We're recording this podcast Monday evening. I think the podcast is going to go up pretty soon after we record it, so no delays here. This is the time of the year where you can't really hold podcasts because things change. Nope. So we're in that space. We'll get to Tyler's thoughts on all things when it comes to the draft and where the Hawks are, 15 and 46. I do want to start with a kind of a rumor. I'm not even sure it's a rumor. Maybe it kind of is. But there's been a lot of talk, and I'm less concerned about the trade that was the reported trade that apparently has cooled that Jake Fisher reported with Dallas about Collins and 15 for Bertans and 10. That seems to be not happening based on what it's been talked. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We can if you want, but also there's this wave of Dereck Lively interest that's been reported by people like Matt Moore and Mark Stein and Jake Fisher. And I think it's kind of real. I don't know how real it is at this point in time. And for those of you that may not know this, Dereck Lively is a center, a pure center, 7-footer out of Duke, another in the long line of one and done Duke guys for the Hawks. But behind the curtain, I took him for the Hawks in a mock draft on this very feed on our Locked On NBA mock draft. I took him. That was a few weeks ago, and it was kind of the way the board broke. He fell to me at 15, which I think is a crucial aspect of this. He fell to me. I did not trade up for him. I took him at 15 as the best player available. And I noted that, look, this pick makes less sense if they don't trade Clint. But if you think they're going to trade Clint, I understand at 15 overall. That's a long preamble. what do you think? Because, I'm sure you've been watching Dereck Lively and you've seen all the chatter, and I think that's probably the most buzzy topic right now, and we'll get into everything else after this.
Can you like a basketball player but also have so my guy last year was Walker Kessler, right?
You were right.
That was my guy. Like I was on him.
Your old long lost UNC fan. I'm coming to the forefront with Walker Kessler. It was great to see.
Yeah, I always knew since I watched 0 of his games at either UNC or Auburn that he was going to be special. But I don't like Dereck Lively nearly as much as Kessler, and I understand. Like the appeal. He was really good defensively, and you've noted the second half of the season he kind of figured some stuff out, and like he really became like a truly like all-encompassing defender. My questions are: this is a very deep draft, and it's a deep wing draft too.
Yep.
And the Hawks wing rotation is let me check. Bad. It's not good. I mean, they're interesting players. I like Bogey. They brought some good stuff to the table. AJ Griffin's young and like he should be better. But like in relation to the other good teams in the NBA, like the Hawks wings are just uninspiring. And like they don't have a starter quality wing on the team. That's proven. Like they just don't. And so I'm like, maybe, draft a wing or draft a guard since we have no backup point guard. And DeJounte Murray, that experiment, like I was banging the drum all season to stop with the split time between Trey and DeJounte because it was not working and they needed a backup point guard. So, like to take a center, especially a center that maybe he can shoot. I'm skeptical just because he didn't do it in a game setting, and like his shooting won't come to the forefront. Like Dereck Lively, if he ever shoots, it won't come to the forefront for a couple of years. It won't come to the forefront, and also you don't need a center. The Hawks, like like we talk about this Hawks team. Their big man rotation is good. It's consistently been good throughout since they got Capella and Okongwu, and then they added Jalen to the mix. Like they have a good big rotation.
Right.
What this sounds like, and this reminds me, do you remember back when Cam Reddish last year before he got traded? That draft, there was talk about the Hawks wanted to reset, quote unquote, the rookie scale contract because Cam Reddish was up on extension. They wanted to trade him for, I think, the kid from Stanford. They trade up in the draft and the lottery to pick him, which would have been interesting because they're kind of similar in their flaws. But like this is kind of what it feels like to me, where it's like if the Hawks were to trade, because I feel like Dereck, he's getting a lot of juice where he's probably going to go in the top 10. And so you're going to have to trade up to get him, which means you're going to have to trade an asset. Whether you think that player is good or not, the Hawks are going to have to trade somebody of real quality who's a good like NBA starter on this team to move up 5 spots to take a guy who on his rookie scale contract is going to be coming off the bench every game of his career. So I'm like, I'm not even saying it's bad to do that per se. I'm just saying this feels like a very cost-cutting, similar to kind of what the Hawks did with Kevin Huerter, where you're trading for a downgrade in talent, or not necessarily even talent in this case, but like able production at the NBA level for the upcoming season. Like you're trading down to kind of save money, because like I don't see a scenario where Dereck Lively is a better basketball player than Clint Capella. Like or Onyeka Okongwu. So I'm like, I'm taking somebody, regardless of who you think is going to be a starting center going forward. I'm willingly going to take another center who I don't think is better or can supplant the guys I already have on my team. That's where I have a little bit of a disconnect. I don't know, Brad. Maybe you can talk me in or out of this, but it's not that I'm out. I'm just trying to explain, like, isn't this the opportunity cost to get, if we're going to trade up, wouldn't you want to trade up for a wing? Like I think that's my biggest takeaway. Like, wouldn't we want to trade up for the position of obvious need, or a guy who can stay in front of his man at the point of attack defensively? I mean, I guess that's, I don't know. Maybe that, but I don't know. You tell me. Like he's gonna have to be able to shoot. That's it. And I'm just skeptical. Like, the man had a below 10% usage in college. I don't know, man. I think fans are going to be really mad at Dereck Lively his first couple of years, just because it's going to be a struggle for him offensively.
Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's very easy to be confident in everything everyone needs from you all the time, and never take a moment to actually think about what you need from yourself. I'm guilty of this for sure, in the midst of juggling all kinds of things and a million different work commitments, family commitments, etc. We spend all the time giving. It can sometimes leave us stretched pretty thin or even burned out. Therapy can give you the tools that you need to find more balance in your life, and part of that is being able to support others without actually leaving yourself behind. Therapy is exceptionally helpful when it comes to learning coping skills or even setting boundaries. It can also simply be the best version of your possible self. And if you thought about starting therapy at any point, I recommend starting with BetterHelp and giving it a try today. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and they will match you with a licensed therapist right now. If you ever want to switch therapists as well, you can do so with absolutely no charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you can also visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get a 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Couple things. The way when I set it up, I made sure to note that I think trading up for Dereck Lively is different than if he fell to you at 15. And
I mean, the rumor was trading up.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, because it seems like Dereck Lively is going to be gone at 15, which not surprising at all. He's a pretty interesting prospect. I'm with you generally speaking. Number one, I don't really think trading up is the best course of action in a vacuum. I'm not saying it's impossible to do a good trade up, because it's possible. But this is not a draft where I'm looking to trade up, probably, if I'm the Hawks, because of the nature of this draft. It's kind of flatter in some respects, not in a bad way, but I think guys are closer together. There's not these huge tier breaks. But if I was going to trade up, to your point, I would be looking for a perimeter player, more than a center. And I think it's fair to say, like, you and I are pretty high on Onyeka, which I think that's maybe part of this. I think that he's going to be a long-term starter, and that if you didn't believe that, like, some of the more pro-Lively things that I've seen from maybe even from Hawks fans are almost like not quite believing in Onyeka as the guy, whether they think he's too small or the whole thing. It doesn't matter why, but maybe that's where it comes from. If you think like Onyeka is the guy, I don't think you need to move heaven and earth for Dereck Lively. Would it be nice to have a 7-footer alongside Onyeka just for utility's sake? Probably, sure. I've argued that if you move Clint, and eventually I think they probably will at some point, whether it's now or later, whoever your backup center is probably needs to have some heft to him, just because on the way that Onyeka is. That's not a problem.
And this is another thing. Does Dereck Lively have heft?
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, he's a 7-footer.
I like him in space. I like how he uses his length to contest shots. I'm worried about the physicality of the sport.
Yeah, he's not playing right now today. He's not particularly physical, and I wonder if that is because he was a top 5 prospect in this class and used to be kind of seen as more of a not necessarily a perimeter player, but I think there was the thought that you talked about it earlier with his shooting. There was a thought, like, almost like, you remember the James Wiseman talk pre-arrival, where it was like there was this notion that he could play. I'm not saying anything about James Wiseman, but you know what I mean? There was this talk about him being a perimeter guy and how he can create on the perimeter and shoot and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that Dereck Lively is James Wiseman. I'm not. But it was a little bit similar in the way they were talked about. Whereas Dereck Lively, I think in the second half of the season, you brought it up earlier, and I said it before, that's when he kind of became a prospect again, because he had a pretty bad start to the season at Duke. And he was an 18-year-old who was not ready yet. And once he got dialed in, it was because of his rim protection and the way his defense really, really, really shined. And it helps to be, 7'1" with a 7, whatever it is, wingspan, 7'6", whatever it is. But yeah, he's not particularly physical right now. Like, the hope would be as he gets older, he'll probably fill out a little bit and get stronger. A lot of guys who are 7 feet at 18, 19 years old are not physical, but you're right. He's not physical right now. So that's one thing there. Anyway, so there's nuance here. you sound like you're not closing the door on Lively, and I'm not either. I have a hard time. I mean, we should give the caveat in case with new listeners. Tyler and I both like John Collins more than everyone else does. I am higher on Clint than Tyler is, but I think, as you just heard, he talked about Clint in a pretty positive fashion a second ago as like a guy who's a proven entity. He's a really good player, and he's flawed, but he's a very good player. So that maybe informs us, because the way it's been reported so far is one of the ways to maybe move up is that Dallas pick. And you said it. It's kind of like, the Herder trade comparison.
That trade is such a clear cost cutting move. But it's better disguised. It's better. Right.
That's what I'm getting. That's exactly. That's 100% what it is. And now I was yelling from the rooftops the day of the Herder trade, whereas people were pointing to the first round pick. I was pointing to, this is obviously a luxury tax ducking move. And it was. We all know. I think everybody that has eyes has now seen that that's what it was. Now, the cover was the first round pick. And if they get that pick, the deal doesn't look quite as bad. But it was in the moment, make your team worse to save money trade with a little bit of a carrot of a first round pick. This would be the same thing. No matter how you feel about John Collins, even if you are really low on John Collins, which we are not, but even if you are, I think it's pretty obvious he's a lot better than Davis Bertans at basketball. So you would be making that move. Yes, you jump 5 spots in this draft, but I think that 5-spot jump from 15 to 10 in this draft is not that big of a jump. It's just not. No. And then obviously you're downgrading in talent. The big thing is the cost savings. And look, I've done the whole thing before. If the mandate from on high, and when I say on high, I mean Tony, to the front office is, I'm not paying it again. I hope that's not the case, but if that's the mandate,
paying it again.
Well, I'm not going to pay it. Period.
Oh, okay.
Again. Yeah. You know what I mean? So if that's the mandate, and look, if I'm a Hawks fan, I'd be furious with that, but that might be the mandate. Now, this is a way to do it. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, but you're going to have to trade somebody that makes real money to get under the tax if that's the mandate. That's the whole thing.
I will say it could be less to give Wrestler a break. It's the one time I want to give a billionaire a break in my life ever. Okay. It could be that this is the best deal we can get so that we can free up Okongwu offensively so that he can be his best self as an offensive player. Because I do think there's something to the point that Okongwu both needs to be starting alongside Trae Young and he needs to play alongside shooting so that you can maximize his game offensively. And where you pair him with John, while John's an okay shoot, like I still believe in John Collins shooting. Like I think he's going to bounce back and have a good shooting season. You probably want more of a natural shooter at that position, a Sadiq Bey type.
And it takes multiple moves to get there. And just for anybody who hasn't seen this, the reporting basically said that it seemed like the Hawks were maybe more in on that Collins transaction than the Mavs were, but the Mavs want Capella instead of Collins. And by the way, if you're Dallas, I think that actually makes sense. While I like John a lot, I'd rather have Clint for Dallas. If I was
here's my rant. I don't like that I'm doing this with a rumor that may or may not whatever.
It's
but
a very soft rumor.
The counter to be like, okay, Capella and 15, and you taking back Bertans.
I'm not doing that. And there's no way I'm doing. And I said that when it first came out.
I'm like, Dallas, respectfully, you have nobody as good as the Hawks' 3 bigs that, as good as Collins, Capella, or Okongwu.
No, and they know they're doing a favor.
You have not had a good that type of big since Tyson Chandler. It feels like since they let Tyson Chandler go for nothing, they have not had that, and that's the guy Luka needs. And so the Hawks, idea that the Hawks are just going to give Capella because he's come on, Capella's on a quote unquote better contract, and he's I'm saying. More natural center.
Right. The thing is,
that's not happening.
I agree. Plus, I'm sure you saw it. I'll just note it again. In every reporting, I know from Mark Stein, who's very, very good at his job, every mention of Capella is like Trae Young favorite Clint Capella, which I've been saying forever and ever and ever and ever. But Trae really likes Clint. And I'm not saying that you have to think it matters, but for the team, it matters. And that's why Clint's still here right now. It's a big reason. I'm not saying it's the only reason why. It's a big reason why he's still here. Anyway, no, that rumors, we don't have to go way down the line on that, but it is just notable because that was the mechanism that's been reported for them to trade up. There are other ways they could attach that. Let's just say that Kings pick, for instance. If they wanted to go 15 in the Kings pick, That might get you to 10, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Not much higher than that. It might be more like 11 or 12. Like, I think people underestimate the cost of moving up in the NBA draft.
Yeah,
it does cost a lot. Like on the flip side, some of the trade down scenarios, like I think that I've talked to a couple people around the league, like a pretty natural trade down scenario is 15 for 21 and 22 with Brooklyn. Yeah. And that might seem like a lot, but that's kind of what it costs to go up 6-7 spots in the NBA draft in the first round. Second round's Wild West. But yeah.
and with ownership clearly not wanting to pay the tax, and two, with how the new CBA is, that might be beneficial to get 2 rookie scale guys in a good draft. Like, it's a very good draft. Like, there's a lot of talent in this draft. Like, if you can get 2 good like rookie scale contract guys at 22 and 23 instead of 1 at 15. That might be something to really think about, because there's no, like, to me, outside of like the top 7 to 8, I think I gotta redo the names again. But like outside the top 8, like everybody's kind of fungible. Maybe top 9 with Bilal included, but like everybody else is kind of like I can take them or I can't. Like, it's not going to end the world. Like, I like Case and Wallace, but like if he's there at 12, I'm not trading up to get him.
Today's show is brought to you by Ibotta. We're always throwing money at something: school supplies for kids, new house projects, the list goes on and on. It's time to spend that hard-earned money on something else that actually brings something back to you in return, and that means Ibotta. You can earn cash back on every single shopping trip that you do. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items across the board. You link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's just that easy. The average user with Ibotta earns $120 per year in real cash back. That covers a lot of different things: shopping trips, or maybe even just cashing out to purchase travel or go to a game, etc. Have a fun night out. All kinds of options with Ibotta, and you get real cash back, not points. Other apps actually go with points, and with Ibotta, you get the real cash back. You actually track it in real time as well. You can earn cash back on hundreds of different online brands and retailers as well. When you start with Ibotta, that includes places like Lowe's and Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. And right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the promo code LOCKED when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app right now, and use that promo code LOCKED. That is IBOTTA in Google Play or App Store, and use that promo code LOCKED. Check out Ibotta today. I want to dig in there a little bit, because every time I mention a trade down scenario, you can imagine the response from some fans that just they don't want to hear that. No,
fans hate a trade down.
Always
hate a trade down,
which is fine, and I get why. But I think this team in particular, you mentioned the biggest reason why that makes sense in a lot of ways. Other than, I agree, this is kind of a flatter class. Again, not in a bad way. It's a good class. It's just that the gaps are not huge, and then getting multiple rookie scale cost control pieces for a core that's very, very expensive is very helpful when you're admitting, like, I think we have to live in reality and know that this is an ownership group that even if they end up paying the tax, they're not going to go super duper in. They're not going to go super duper in ever, I don't think. So those two things. And what I was going to ask you about, was on my list actually to ask you about, is like, there's this notion that whoever they draft this year is just going to plug in and play right away. Like Case and Wallace is a good example. So Case and Wallace, like, I like Case and Wallace a lot. It sounds like you do too. Yeah. I love Case and Wallace. Like, he's one of my best case scenario guys for the Hawks in this range. There's this, people are talking about him like he's going to come in and be their 7th man. And it's like, guys, he's not. He might play because he's a first round pick. He's not going to positively change your – like, AJ was outlier good this year for a pick in that range, and he was their 9th or 10th man for most of the season. That's what happens on a team that's trying to win. Rookies don't come in and positively change your life. They don't generally do that. And again, AJ fell way too far. We agree on that. He was a much better talent than that. And yeah, that worked. But I think the gap between 15 and 21 in terms of like NBA readiness is not going to be a big gap. Like, It's not going to change anything. And that guy's not going to play. I mean, the way that I would frame this is the pick this year, let's say they stay at 15. No matter who it is. It changed a little bit based on who it is, but no matter who it is, they'll play more than Jalen did 2 years ago because Nate's not coaching the team. but they'll play less. But they'll play less than AJ did last year. That's my general understanding.
The Hawks, and I've done the exercise because I wake up and I'm like, I gotta try some new trades in the trade machine. You know, just gotta get. That's how you get the brain working to get ready for work. The Hawks could trade their entire front court, like Hunter, Collins, and Capella for like other bits and pieces, plus tax savings for wrestler. And the rookies that they take with whatever picks they have still won't play. They still won't play. People gotta understand. Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson, AJ Griffin, Bogdan Bogdanovic. That's 4 guys I just named who are. One of them wasn't even a staple in the rotation,
right? And none of them were starting.
And I didn't list Okongwu. I didn't list him because he might be starting. I didn't list him
because he'd be starting. Right, exactly.
Yeah. No, so I'm like, there's no minutes. There's no, and they're not gonna give the backup keys, the backup point guard keys to a rookie to run an NBA offense. That would be. Not on a team that's trying to win.
And that's the thing. It's important to note, again, this is a team, until we see something different, they are trying to win. And you can argue, and I have, and we'll debate on what they're doing is correct and how they're approaching it and all the moves. But end of the day, they're not in step back mode right now. Like they're not there. I know they've been in the play-in 2 years in a row. It's been very disappointing, but for everybody internally and externally. But they're not in a place where they're not going Washington right now. Like they're still trying to get better and win. They're not going to.
Hold on, Brad. Put respect on the play-in. Carl Towns said it was more impressive than winning the title.
Carl Towns. I mean, how do I say this? There are lots of Hawks fans that always want Carl Towns. I encourage you to watch that interview if you still want Carl Towns. Anyway, no, it's a mess. But before we round this out, and we'll talk about more prospects in a second, I've said before, it's harder than people want to understand that it is to trade. I understand you can get in the trade machine and do it. To trade your whole front court is not an easy thing to do. It's just not.
Oh no,
like you can do it.
It's hard in the trade machine. It's hard
right.
in the trade
It's not.
I've tried.
I understand that.
Fans,
look,
fans trust me. The amount of DeAndre Hunter trades I've tried.
I was gonna leave it alone for now because that's a different podcast. But look, whether it's, and I feel like every Hawks fan, and I'm not poking fun or being negative. Every Hawks fan has the guy in the front court that they want to trade. For you, it's Hunter. For a lot of people, it's JC. A lot of people, it's Capella. Like, it is what it is. I think one of those guys will get traded. Maybe more than one. We'll see. But I will be surprised if all 3 are traded because that's just hard to do. And, I think that's, for me, the biggest thing about this framing and that the trading up thing and all that, whoever they draft, and Landry kind of said this. Look, Landry is good at GM speak. He didn't really say a lot in that interview on Friday to the media. I was there for it. It was fine. But one thing I do believe is that he mentioned upside a few times, and that's not a man that's going to be drafting for this coming season. You don't draft for rookie year. You draft for year 3, year 4, and it might matter rookie. I mean, it's nice to have a guy that can play a little bit for you early on, but that's not why you take a guy ever. AJ, and same thing. Jalen, same thing. Those are not short-term draft picks. Those were long-term draft picks.
And that's why like I know I sound like I'm down on Dereck Lively. I believe in the talent, and I think he's going to be a good player in this league. I just think on this Hawks team, as currently constructed, as we currently look at the landscape of the team, it's going to be tough for him to get consistent minutes because, Jalen Johnson is on the team, and he's
and 2 years ahead, and 2 years ahead of him in development. All right, that will do it for part 1 of this 2-part episode with myself and Tyler. There is much more to come, so please check out part 2. It should be available in your podcast feed of choice right now. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Please subscribe to the podcast. Please tell a friend about the show. Follow us on Twitter, etc. And we'll see you all next time.